In ancient Greece, there were four main schools: Cynicism, Skepticism, Epicureanism, and Stoicism. In this video, we'll be taking a look at Cynicism. Most people may have heard about the infamous Diogenes, often called the craziest philosopher of all time. The stories of Diogenes are endless, but what did he actually represent? Was he the ultimate cynic? And how was this creed exactly related to the rest? Well, for starters, according to Cynicism, people are reasoning animals, and the purpose of life and the way to gain happiness is to achieve virtue, in agreement with nature, following one's natural sense of reason by living simply and shamelessly free from social constraints. The Cynics rejected all conventional desires for wealth, power, glory, social recognition, conformity, and worldly possessions, and even flouted such conventions openly and derisively in public. The first philosopher to outline these themes was Antisthenes, who had been a pupil of Socrates in the late 400s BC. He was followed by Diogenes, who famously lived in a ceramic jar on the streets of Athens. Diogenes took cynicism to its logical extremes with his famous public demonstrations of nonconformity, coming to be seen as the archetypal cynic philosopher. This was perfectly depicted when Alexander the Great asked him if there were any favors he could do for him, and Diogenes replied, "Move a little to the right, you are blocking my sun." He was then followed by Crates of Thebes, who gave away a large fortune so he could live a life of cynic poverty in Athens. The term cynic derives from the Greek word kynikos, meaning dog-like, possibly referring to the lifestyle of the cynic philosophers who lived in simplicity and rejected conventional norms, though another explanation offered in ancient times for why the cynics were called dogs was because the first cynic, Antisthenes, taught in the Cynosarges gymnasium at Athens. The word Cynosarges means the place of the white dog. Whatever the case may be, cynicism gradually declined in importance after the 3rd century BC, but it experienced a revival with the rise of the Roman Empire in the 1st century. Cynics could be found begging and preaching throughout the cities of the empire, and similar ascetic and rhetorical ideas appeared in early Christianity. By the 19th century, emphasis on the negative aspects of cynic philosophy led to the modern understanding of cynicism to mean a disposition of disbelief in the sincerity or goodness of human motives and actions. Cynicism, at its core, advocated a simple and minimalist lifestyle, rejecting material possessions, wealth, and social status. They emphasized self-control, freedom, and independence from societal expectations. Cynics criticized conventional values, such as wealth, fame, and social status. Viewing them as impediments to living a virtuous and fulfilling life, they believed in living in harmony with nature and following one's natural instincts. Asceticism played a significant role in cynic philosophy, with adherents often practicing extreme forms of self-denial, including homelessness, begging, and abstention from comforts. Virtue, particularly moral virtue, was central to cynic philosophy. The idea was that true happiness could only be attained through virtuous living. Cynicism faced criticism from other philosophical schools for its rejection of societal norms and its extreme lifestyle. Critics accused cynics of being antisocial, rude, and disrespectful due to their provocative behavior and disregard for social conventions. Despite its small following in ancient Greece, cynicism had a lasting impact on Western philosophy. The principles of simplicity, self-sufficiency, and skepticism toward societal norms can be found in later philosophical movements, including Stoicism and even certain aspects of existentialism. Diogenes in particular became a symbol of philosophical defiance and authenticity, inspiring numerous anecdotes and stories about his unconventional lifestyle and witty retorts. The creed also found its way into literature and popular culture, with Diogenes and other cynic philosophers featuring prominently in ancient texts and anecdotes. The figure of Diogenes, with his lantern in search of an honest man, became a symbol of philosophical inquiry and skepticism. Now let's have a look at the relation cynicism had with a much more known philosophy, Stoicism. Similarities, ethical focus. Both Stoicism and Cynicism placed a strong emphasis on ethics and moral virtue as the primary components of a good life. They believed that true happiness and fulfillment could be achieved through living virtuously, simplicity, and minimalism. Both philosophies advocated for simplicity and minimalism in lifestyle. They rejected material possessions, wealth, and social status as sources of true happiness, instead valuing inner virtue and self-sufficiency. Freedom from external goods. Stoics and Cynics both emphasized the importance of being indifferent to external circumstances beyond one's control. They taught that true freedom lies in being unattached to things like wealth, fame, and pleasure, as these are transient and ultimately irrelevant to a virtuous life. Endurance and resilience. Both philosophies encourage the cultivation of inner strength, endurance, and resilience in the face of adversity. Stoicism, in particular, placed great emphasis on accepting and enduring hardships with equanimity, viewing them as opportunities for personal growth and virtue. Differences. Approach to emotions. While Stoicism advocated for the control and suppression of emotions through rationality and self-discipline, Cynicism took a more radical approach by advocating for the rejection of societal norms and the embrace of natural instincts, including emotions. Cynics believed that experiencing and expressing emotions authentically was integral to living in accordance with nature. Social engagement. Stoicism encouraged engagement with society and fulfilling one's duties as a citizen, while Cynicism often led to withdrawal from society and a rejection of conventional social norms. Cynics typically lived in poverty, begging for food, and openly criticizing societal conventions, whereas Stoics aimed for a more balanced engagement with society while still maintaining inner virtue. Philosophical method. Stoicism developed a systematic philosophical framework with elaborate doctrines and principles, whereas Cynicism was more iconoclastic and less systematic in its approach. Cynics often used provocative and unconventional methods to challenge social conventions and provoke thought, while Stoicism focused on logical reasoning and the development of a coherent philosophical system. Attitude towards conventional wisdom. Stoicism sought to reconcile with and adapt certain aspects of conventional wisdom, integrating them into its philosophical framework. In contrast, Cynicism rejected conventional wisdom altogether, viewing societal norms and values as corrupt and incompatible with living a virtuous life. In summary, while Stoicism and Cynicism share some common principles such as ethical focus, simplicity, and resilience, they differ significantly in their approaches to emotions, social engagement, philosophical method, and attitude towards conventional wisdom. Stoicism tends to be more moderate and systematic, advocating for engagement with society and the control of emotions, while Cynicism takes a more radical and iconoclastic stance, rejecting societal norms and advocating for a life in accordance with natural instincts. Overall, Cynicism offers a great deal of wisdom that should be studied even at a minimum level, considering that it promotes a state of mind unyielding of any dreadful thoughts and a life in synchronicity with nature.